All right, joining me to talk about all this, Byron York, chief political correspondent, The Washington Examiner and Fox News contributor. Leo Terrell, civil rights attorney and Fox News contributor. And Kim Strassel, Wall Street Journal columnist and Fox News contributor. You know, our own Peter Doocy is saying that Mr. Biden has a problem. Kim, I'm in your camp, and I've written about this all week long. Yeah, he's got a problem. He may have a health problem, no question. But his problem is he followed the line of Bernie Sanders and became a big government socialist right off the top, throwing in crazy Green New Deals and climate change and lawfare and attacking the Supreme Court and mandates that people don't want. I mean, that's his problem, is unsuccessful and unpopular policies, Kim Strassel. That's the way I see it. Your thought?
Yeah. I am so glad you are talking about this, Larry, because you know what? As Democrats face this moment, this huge problem, they should not be allowed to get away with the claim that their problems all come down to Joe Biden's age. I mean, yes, it is a problem for them now that we've had this debate and everyone could see him. But his approval ratings were in the tank well before that debate ever happened. And that's because people are unhappy about inflation and energy prices and the border and crime and our international situation. And this is a result, as you said, he ran as a moderate. That was complete nonsense. And he came in and adopted a Bernie Sanders platform. And it's proving very unpopular. And the Democratic Party is not acknowledging that it's their ideas that have failed.
I mean, shrinking paychecks, shrinking kitchen tables. People don't want to stuff TVs down their throats, and the jobs are going over to China. They don't like the mandates. And, of course, the border. Notice in all these pressers and whatnot, Mr. Biden never mentions the border. And, Leo, I think the border is a very big Democratic problem, even though Biden doesn't want to deal with it.
Well, you're absolutely right. And Joe Biden was losing the issue on the border and the economy before that debate, before the public saw it. And I listened to your opening riff, and you said the Trump policies, what it's being presented, is the best policy you've seen in 40 years. You know why? I honestly believe, Larry, that President Trump wants to be the best president ever. And his economic policies applies to everyone. He wants to put every American first. Joe Biden wants to put Joe Biden first. And the only reason why he stayed in the office, right now he's running for re-election, is because of power and control. That's all it is. It's not about America. It's about Joe Biden. And that's what the American people see. And that's why President Trump is going to be the next president.
Byron, in that, you may have seen the Atlantic magazine article. It's it's a left of center magazine. I'll be polite. Susie Wiles and Chris, what's his name? LaCivita. Two smart people. LaCivita. They've done a great job. Sorry. Anyway, they make an assertion, and I want to ask you about it, that it's not really 7 swing states, it's 4 swing states, Byron. Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Let me repeat. Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, that the whole election will turn on those 4 states. Do you agree with that assessment?
Pretty much. The most conventional way for Trump to win the presidency is he's got to win all the states that he won in 2020, which he has a really good chance of doing. Then he needs to win Georgia and Arizona. And if he does that, he just has to win one of Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin, just one of those, and he becomes president. Now, he's looking very strong in Georgia. Arizona's looking pretty good, but that's it's absolutely crucial that he do that. One more scenario, though, if he wins Arizona and Georgia, and then he wins Virginia, which is pretty close right now, he doesn't have to win any of Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin.
Well, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Leo, did you listen to the clips we had on the vice presidential sweepstakes? I had Governor Burgum, Senator Vance, and Senator Rubio. Did you hear any of those clips? I'm just curious. What your reaction was if you heard it.
First of all, I've been watching the Larry Kudlow show since the top of the hour, so I'm fully aware of those 3 clips.
That's why our ratings have improved so much, Leo. Ever since you started watching the show, our numbers have picked up. No one here can explain it, and there you are, sitting right in front of me. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it.
President Trump has a treasure chest of talent. I honestly believe it could be any one of those three that you that was basically on the top of the segment of your show, but his bench is wide and long, and I think you're going to be surprised. I think Trump is going to go outside of those three. In fact, last week I gave him a suggestion, and I told him just somebody who's been loyal to the MAGA economic movement. And I think Trump is going to pick a winner, no matter who he selects, Larry.
Well, it could be outside that group. There's no question. I don't pretend to any final wisdom on the matter at all. Kim Strassel, do you have a pick on the vice presidential thing? I mean, is there somebody out there that you think would help him, more than anybody else?
So here's what I'd like to see, Larry. I'd like to see someone that your favorite word is very growthy, because they're going to be the next standard bearer for the party. I'd like to see somebody who has some executive experience, because the reason we do vice presidential candidates is, God forbid anything happens to the president, you want him in jobs. So someone who was in the business world, someone who was a governor, for instance. And then I think somebody who can help him with some of the voter constituencies that he's still got some issues with, in particular moderates and suburbanites. And that points toward a Doug Burgum, maybe. It points toward a Glenn Youngkin, maybe. Somebody just someone who's also had some gubernatorial experience, maybe a Nikki Haley, maybe there's a lot of people out there.
There are a lot of people out there. Byron, I kind of, first of all, Kim knows how to manipulate me all these years. Growthier is the key. Growthier is the key. I don't really think the vice president matters in these things. I think it's all about the president when the election is all said and done. But I do like the growthier, and I do like the experience. So that leaves me with this, Byron. I'm giving you the last word. Who's going to be his vice presidential pick, or who should be his vice presidential pick?
I think one of the most important considerations Trump has to make is looking for a temperament balance, a temperament contrast with him. He doesn't need anybody who's more MAGA than he is. He needs somebody who has the executive experience that Kim talked about, who is maybe a little dull, who is very solid and responsible. That could be Youngkin. It could be Burgum. But I will say one last thing. It doesn't get brought up a lot, but I do think Rubio has a big constitutional Florida problem. Look it up. If he were to choose, Trump were to choose Rubio, there would be a big problem about his that would have on the ticket.
But I got a place for him in rural Connecticut. It's not a problem. We'll put him up very low rent. It's a lovely place. Anyway, you're all terrific. Byron York, Leo Terrell, Kim Strassel, thanks so much.